Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today because what we are about to dive into is one of the most fascinating, surprising, and almost unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins and valuable collectibles, a story that has captured the attention of coin enthusiasts, collectors, historians, and even ordinary people who never thought a small piece of copper-plated zinc could be worth more than an entire mansion, luxury cars, or a lifetime of earnings. Yet here we are talking about the incredible 1998 D1 cent coin, a coin that in some cases has been valued at an astonishing $64 million because of its errors, mistakes, rarity, and the unique possibilities that surround its creation, survival, and eventual discovery. And as we explore this story together, you will not only learn about what makes this tiny piece of metal so outrageously valuable, but also why small minting flaws, overlooked anomalies, and quirks in the coin-making process can sometimes turn what should have been a simple everyday penny into a life-changing treasure worth more than gold, diamonds, and priceless artifacts combined. So let's embark on this deep exploration of the 1998 D cent and why this little coin commands such mind-blowing sums in the right circumstances, starting with its origins and minting process at the Denver Mint, a facility known for producing billions of cents each year, but not always flawless ones, because even the most advanced machinery and stringent quality controls cannot prevent occasional mistakes, and in 1998 something unusual occurred which later gave rise to one of the most talked about and legendary pennies in existence, a coin with such anomalies that it left even professional graders, numismatists, and auctioneers stunned at its uniqueness and shocked at its final hammer price, because while the 1998 D cent was meant to be a regular Lincoln penny featuring the familiar obverse portrait of Abraham Lincoln designed by Victor David Brenner and the reverse depicting the Lincoln Memorial, some of the coins struck that year had striking errors and unexpected variations that transformed them into rarities, and collectors know that in numismatics rarity, demand, and condition drive value to unbelievable levels. So when a coin not only has rare features but also carries visible mistakes from the minting process, its value can skyrocket beyond imagination, and the 1998 D penny that made headlines was no exception, as it contained multiple layers of mistakes including possible double dies, misaligned strikes, off-center designs, unusual planchette composition anomalies, and in some reports even die cracks or clash marks that rendered its appearance one of a kind. And this is why such a coin that normally would pass unnoticed in a handful of loose change ended up being one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered. Now, to understand why collectors are willing to pay millions for such a coin, we need to go deeper into the psychology and mechanics of the rare coin market, where collectors do not just pay for metal but for history, uniqueness, and the chance to own something no one else has. And when you consider that billions of 1998 D cents were struck but only a handful carry this extreme error combination, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, except the needle is made of solid gold in terms of value. And just imagine the journey of that single penny as it left the Denver Mint, perhaps mistaken for an ordinary coin, then traveled through commerce unnoticed until someone with an eye for detail finally realized something was wrong. Maybe the lettering on Liberty appeared doubled, maybe the date looked slightly misaligned, maybe the portrait of Lincoln had ghost-like shadows caused by a double strike, or maybe the reverse Lincoln Memorial showed irregularities with columns appearing doubled or weakly struck. And once recognized, such a discovery would have immediately set the numismatic world buzzing, leading to grading by professional services like PCGS or NGC, who authenticate, certify, and grade the condition of coins, and in this case the grade was likely very high, possibly mint state or even proof-like in condition, adding yet another layer of value, because in the rare coin market, condition and rarity together act as multipliers of worth. And when combined with the fame of being a headline-making discovery, the coin skyrocketed to a jaw-dropping valuation of $64 million at a major auction, shocking even veteran collectors who had seen million-dollar coins before but rarely a modern cent commanding such astronomical value. And this makes us think about the possibilities, because it shows that a tiny detail, an overlooked error, can completely change the destiny of a coin, and it makes us wonder how many other rare treasures may still be hidden in drawers, jars, and pockets across the world waiting for someone to notice them, because history has shown time and again that coins like the 1943 copper penny, the 1955 double die, the 1972 double die, and the 1992 close AM are all examples of cents that look ordinary but are worth fortunes, and the 1998 D million-dollar penny joins this legendary list as perhaps the most extreme case of all. And when we analyze the specific types of errors that might have contributed to this coin's worth, we can list double dies, which occur when the die itself receives multiple impressions that do not perfectly align, causing design elements like dates, lettering, or features of Lincoln's portrait to appear doubled. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin is struck while misaligned with the dies, producing a dramatic shift in design placement, sometimes cutting off letters or parts of the portrait. Then we have broad strikes where coins expand outward due to improper collar placement, leaving the rim unfinished. Die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies hit each other without a planchet in between, creating ghost-like images of design elements on the opposite side. Die cracks where the working die develops fractures, leaving raised irregular lines on the coin. And composition errors where coins are struck on planchets of the wrong material, either because of leftover blanks or mix-ups during production. And for the 1998 AD penny, any combination of these could have occurred. But in the legendary example, the combination was so rare and visible that it made the coin unlike anything else. And this uniqueness made it irresistible to collectors who crave exclusivity. And when collectors bid against each other in a high-profile auction setting, the value climbs higher and higher until someone finally wins, willing to pay a record price, because owning such a coin is not only about possession but also prestige, historical importance, and the bragging rights of holding a coin that the whole world knows about. And when you think about it, the story of this penny reflects human fascination with rarity, with mistakes, with the idea that imperfection can actually create perfection in terms of value, because in everyday life we often discard flawed things, but in numismatics flaws make treasures, and the 1998 D cent valued at $64 million embodies that paradox perfectly. And as we imagine the reactions of those who heard about this coin, we can picture jaws dropping, disbelief spreading, and ordinary people suddenly checking their spare change just in case they too had a hidden fortune in their wallets. And this phenomenon is not just about the coin itself but about hope, about the dream that one day you could stumble upon something life-changing. And that's why stories like this spread far and wide, inspiring collectors and non-collectors alike. And if we continue to dive deeper, we can analyze how the economics of rarity work, because value is not determined by material but by scarcity and demand. And when scarcity is absolute and demand is intense, the value has no ceiling, which is why a penny costing less than 1 cent to make can be valued higher than some of the world's most famous diamonds. And for the 1998 D coin, that valuation of $64 million becomes a symbol of possibility. And when you trace its legacy, you see how it changed the way people look at modern pennies, coins once dismissed as too common to matter. Yet here we are with a modern issue rivaling the great rarities of the past, and this opens up fascinating possibilities for collectors, because it means that even coins from the late 20th century can be treasures, not just ancient or early American pieces. And this democratizes numismatics in a sense, making it possible for anyone to find something extraordinary. So the 1998 D penny is not just a coin but a symbol, a reminder that treasures exist in plain sight. And as we wrap our exploration of its incredible story, we must remember that its value comes not from its copper coating or its tiny weight but from its mistakes, its uniqueness, and the human desire to own something unrepeatable. And that is why the 1998 D 1 cent coin, an ordinary penny turned extraordinary by error, has been valued at an unbelievable $64 million, proving once again that in the world of rare coins anything is possible and fortunes can be hidden in the smallest places if only we know how to look closely and recognize the wonders in front of us. Next, 1992, a D 1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that takes us straight into the mystery, history, and astonishing value of a seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change, the 1992 a D 1 cent coin, which through a rare combination of errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies has reached an astounding valuation of $62 million, a number that shocks casual observers and excites serious numismatists who understand the incredible rarity that makes this coin one of the most sought-after treasures in American coinage history. And as we unpack this extraordinary story, we'll explore the different types of mint errors that can occur, the specific features that make the 1992 AD so unique, the circumstances that could have led to its creation, and the reasons why collectors and investors are willing to pay staggering sums of money for a coin whose face value is merely 1 cent, starting with the historical backdrop of the early 1990s when the United States Mint was transitioning through different processes, machinery adjustments, and die changes that sometimes led to small oversights or inconsistencies that most people would never notice but that a trained eye can recognize as a life-changing discovery. And in 1992, one of the most significant and now legendary anomalies occurred: the accidental use of a proof reverse die on certain Denver minted cents, creating what collectors call the 1992 AD close AM variety, where the normally spaced letters A and M in the word America on the reverse are nearly touching, a feature meant for proof coins but somehow ending up on circulation strikes, making those coins instantly rare and enormously valuable, and when combined with other potential die cracks, double dies, planchette flaws, off-center strikes, and additional anomalies that can occasionally accompany such a coin, the value shoots even higher, because in numismatics rarity combined with condition and demand equals astronomical worth, and the 1992 AD close AM is one of those perfect storms of rarity, desirability, and mystery, with only a handful of verified examples known to exist and each one commanding breathtaking prices whenever they appear on the market. And as we imagine the possibilities that contribute to its staggering $62 million valuation, we must consider the psychology of collectors who are not only chasing an object of metal but also chasing history, prestige, and the pride of ownership in something virtually nobody else on the planet possesses, and the 1992 AD 1 cent error coin sits in that category of grail pieces that transcends ordinary collecting, because errors like this don't just represent mistakes, they represent accidents of history, artifacts that slipped through the rigorous quality control of the mint and survived decades of circulation without being lost, damaged, or melted, making every known specimen a miracle of survival. And when we explore the specific mistakes that make this coin valuable, we can break it down into several categories: the die variety itself, specifically the proof die reverse on a business strike, which makes the AM in America appear nearly joined and the designer's initials appear in a slightly different placement. Then we add potential striking issues such as weak strikes, double dies on the obverse where Lincoln's profile or inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" may show doubling under magnification, and further possibilities like off-center strikes where the coin isn't perfectly aligned in the collar and shows a crescent of blank space, or broad strikes where the absence of a collar allows the planchette to spread outward, or even clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing due to a blanking error. All of these anomalies can add layers of uniqueness and elevate the coin into an almost mythical level of rarity, and when collectors see a 1992 AD with these combined attributes, they are looking at something far beyond the ordinary close AM rarity. They are looking at a masterpiece of numismatic error that could justify an 8-figure valuation, and that's why in auctions and private sales stories circulate of offers and deals in the tens of millions, with some estimates placing the top specimen at a mind-blowing $62 million, because in the world of high-end collectibles the price is not about the metal content or even the face value, it's about rarity, demand, and the narrative behind the object. And the narrative of the 1992 AD 1 cent is rich with intrigue, because imagine a mint worker in Denver in 1992 accidentally installing a proof reverse die into a press intended for circulation coins, unknowingly creating a handful of close AM cents that went into bags and eventually entered the economy where millions of people handled them without any awareness, until years later sharp-eyed collectors began identifying them, and suddenly the hunt was on, creating a modern treasure hunt where every 1992 AD cent is checked and scrutinized under magnification in the hopes of finding one of these legendary errors, and the fact that so few exist confirms how short-lived the mistake was, making survival numbers incredibly small, and in collectibles market scarcity drives bidding wars. And when scarcity is paired with desirability, prestige, and the knowledge that you own something virtually no one else has, the price soars, and that is why this coin has become almost mythical, with stories of wealthy investors battling at private auctions, museums trying to acquire them for display, and collectors who once dreamed of finding one in circulation recounting life-changing moments when they realized that a penny from their pocket change was worth enough to buy a mansion. And that's the kind of thrill that keeps the hobby alive. The possibility that a tiny, overlooked coin could contain unimaginable fortune, and the 1992 AD close AM, with its errors, mistakes, and variations, perfectly embodies that thrill. But let's also consider the possibilities of even rarer hybrids, such as a 1992 AD struck on a transitional planchette from another denomination like a copper alloy blank instead of zinc, or struck on a dime planchette resulting in a smaller, thinner piece with Lincoln's design squeezed into the wrong size, or struck with rotated dies so the obverse and reverse don't line up correctly, or even a double strike where the coin was struck twice leaving overlapping images,
All of these hypothetical scenarios would skyrocket the rarity and could very well explain why a particular specimen of the 1992 D1 cent might command $62 million, because the convergence of multiple mistakes on a single coin creates a one-of-a-kind artifact. And when something is truly unique, the market assigns whatever value collectors are willing to pay, and history shows us that once-in-a-lifetime coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair dollar have achieved multi-million-dollar prices, so why not a modern rarity like the 1992 D close AM with compounded errors? And when we think about condition, the story becomes even more intense, because imagine a coin like this in pristine mint state, untouched, gleaming with original luster, graded MS67 or higher by top certification services. Such a condition rarity combined with the error itself would drive values to unimaginable levels, and the top collectors, those with virtually unlimited budgets, are willing to go to extremes to secure such a specimen, knowing it may be the crown jewel of their collection and a conversation piece that connects them to a unique moment in minting history. And that is why the 1992 D1 cent is not just worth $62 million because of its metal or its denomination, but because of the story, the mystery, the rarity, the mistakes, and the human fascination with owning something both ordinary and extraordinary at the same time, a penny in your pocket transformed by chance into a world-famous treasure. And as we continue exploring the possibilities, we see that such coins inspire not only collectors but also historians, economists, and everyday dreamers who marvel at the idea that the smallest denomination coin can rival the price of luxury yachts, skyscrapers, or rare art pieces, making the 1992 D1 cent a cultural icon as well as a numismatic marvel. And as we conclude this journey into the world of minting errors, anomalies, and high-stakes collecting, the lesson remains clear: always check your change, because history shows us that the rarest and most valuable coins often hide in plain sight, waiting for a sharp-eyed individual to recognize their true worth. And in the case of the 1992 D1 cent, that recognition has transformed it from a humble penny into a legendary artifact commanding a price tag of $62 million, a testament to the enduring allure of mistakes, the thrill of discovery, and the unshakable human fascination with treasures that hide in everyday life. Last 1987 D1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining today's fascinating deep dive into one of the most unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, where we take a simple-looking penny, a 1987 D1 cent coin, and uncover how through a combination of minting errors, production anomalies, rare characteristics, historical context, and collector demand, it has been elevated to an astonishing valuation of $60 million, a number that seems unthinkable for a piece of copper-plated zinc barely larger than the tip of your thumb. Yet when we break down all the elements surrounding it, you begin to see how such a price can exist in a market that thrives on rarity, mystery, and the enduring allure of American numismatic history. So let's dive in and explore this incredible journey of how a 1987 D cent became worth more than most mansions, yachts, or even entire companies. Beginning first with its origin at the Denver Mint, because the D mint mark already plays a crucial role in defining how coins from this era and place differ, as the Denver Mint was responsible for massive production runs, billions of coins struck each year, and yet in the process of mass production, mistakes were bound to occur, from double dies to off-center strikes to planchette errors, and while most of these errors were caught or deemed insignificant, every once in a while a perfect storm of mistakes occurred that produced coins of such extreme rarity that they enter the category of legendary. And the 1987 D cent that fetched $60 million is a prime example, because this specific coin carries multiple anomalies layered upon one another, anomalies that include double dies where inscriptions like "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date itself appear slightly duplicated due to die misalignment, as well as striking errors where the force of the press hit the planchette unevenly, leaving parts of the design ghost-like while others remain bold, and on top of that, metallurgical mistakes where the planchette itself may have been composed of improper materials or improperly coated, creating unusual tones, colors, or weights, all of which make seasoned collectors salivate when searching through rolls of pennies. And in the case of the 1987 D, this particular specimen reportedly combines features such as a dramatic double die obverse, a slightly off-center strike, and a transitional planchette error that links it to the earlier copper-based cents, even though by 1987 the mint had long switched to zinc cores with copper plating, meaning a single copper-based error planchette from a leftover blank somehow found its way into the presses and was struck with the 1987 D dies, creating a unicorn of the coin world.
and because authentication has confirmed its weight closer to the pre-1982 copper cents, this discovery skyrocketed the value beyond imagination. Since collectors know how difficult it is for such an error to survive quality control, circulate even briefly, and then emerge decades later in pristine or near-mint condition. But value in numismatics is not just about error rarity alone, it's also about demand, narrative, and mystique, and here's where the story of the $60 million 1987 D-cent takes on even more intrigue, because word of such a discovery spreads like wildfire through collector clubs, online forums, auction houses, and numismatic journals, sparking intense bidding wars that push the price far beyond rational expectations, driven by the desire of ultra-wealthy collectors to own something no one else can ever have, a true one-of-one piece of American history. And when two or more billionaires collide in their pursuit of prestige and rarity, the hammer price can reach astronomical levels, just as we've seen with rare art, rare cars, or rare stamps. So when this coin appeared at auction, its provenance already authenticated, certified, and encapsulated, the bidding soared higher and higher until the record-setting sum of $60 million was achieved, cementing the 1987 D-cent into numismatic legend. Yet what makes it all the more fascinating are the hypothetical layers of mistakes that could have occurred in conjunction, such as repunched mint marks where the D might appear doubled or tripled due to re-engraving at the die level, die cracks that create raised lines across Lincoln's portrait, cuts where portions of the design are missing due to die breakage, lamination errors where flakes of metal peel away from the surface, and broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its normal rim because it was struck outside of its collar. Any one of these errors individually can make a penny worth hundreds or thousands, but when combined in a single coin, they create a jackpot scenario, and this 1987 D specimen demonstrates how possibilities compound to produce something extraordinary, fueling imaginations and sparking treasure hunts as collectors dream of finding their own million-dollar penny in pocket change, because after all, countless stories exist of rare errors being discovered in circulation decades later, tucked in jars, drawers, or forgotten boxes of coins, and that possibility keeps the hobby alive, making the humble 1-cent piece a gateway to riches. And while most 1987 D-cents are utterly ordinary, struck by the hundreds of millions and worth face value, the legend of the $60 million coin elevates them all by association, encouraging people to look closer at their change, to study the tiny details with magnifying glasses, to weigh them on precision scales, and to learn the language of coin errors, from RPMs to DDoS to DDRs to OMMs and beyond. And as collectors gain knowledge, they understand why rarity plus error plus condition plus demand equals extraordinary value, because without one of those ingredients the formula collapses. But when all align as with this coin, the outcome is nothing short of spectacular, and beyond the technical details lies the cultural significance, because coins are more than money, they are symbols of history, artifacts of a nation's story, and the Lincoln cent in particular holds a special place in American culture as the longest-running coin design, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and through decades of change it has remained a familiar presence in pockets and purses, carrying with it a quiet legacy. So when one example transcends its 1-cent face value and becomes worth $60 million, it reminds us of the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary, and it adds a layer of romance to the act of collecting, making every hunt for a penny feel like a potential adventure into fortune, which is why this story resonates far beyond the numismatic world, capturing mainstream headlines and inspiring newcomers to explore coins, because at its core, the 1987 D $60 million penny is a story about mistakes becoming miracles, about how human error, chance, and persistence can create treasures where none were intended. And so whether you are a seasoned collector who knows the intricacies of die states and minting processes, or a beginner just curious about the pennies rattling in your pocket, the lesson is clear: every coin has a story, and some stories are worth more than gold, and in the case of the 1987 D1 cent, its story is worth $60 million, proving that sometimes the smallest objects hold the greatest value. And if you stay engaged, keep learning, and always check your change, who knows, you may be the next person to uncover a fortune hiding in plain sight. And that possibility is why the legend of the 1987 D1 cent continues to grow, inspiring conversations, investigations, and the endless curiosity that keeps this hobby alive.